Welcome back to Double eedrummer. Thanks for joining me as I continue my work on late night funk. In my last video, I reviewed my work on the intro section of Late Night Funk. The link to that's in the description. In part 2, I will go over my work on the solo section. I really enjoyed working on this piece as it has a straightforward structure and a fun groove. However, as you'll see in today's video, the solo part gave me a lot more trouble than the intro. As I mentioned in the previous video, I have trouble making decisions while doing fills. Well, with a longer improv section, that means my indecisiveness is amplified. There were two key takeaways from the work here. Number one, it's best to listen to something before playing it. And number two, less is more. I'll go over both of these in detail throughout the video. I grew up listening to progressive rock, which tends to be very busy. Consequently, my first instinct when playing is to fill in space. This is true for my grooves as well as my fills. I tend to make things overly complicated. It takes a conscious effort for me to pull myself back from this. These clips do a great job of demonstrating this. The fills with more space tend to be cleaner and sound better. My hi-hat work is another area that I'm trying to improve. In the past, I didn't typically use a hi-hat or a bass to keep any type of a tempo during a fill. This piece was a good practice mechanism for improving that. So consequently, you'll see while I'm doing my solo, I try to keep a consistent hi-hat beat. Now, of course, as with everything else, there are going to be mistakes there, tempo issues and so forth. But in general, my goal here was to try to be more consistent in keeping a beat during the solo. This first clip is my first attempt at the solo section, and I make a big mistake here. If you ever needed a good example of why you want to listen to something before playing it, this is it. I did not know what the structure of the solo was going to sound like. I didn't know what the hits were, and consequently, I didn't set it up properly. I missed the hits, and I don't exit cleanly. You'll notice a major difference between the first and the second attempt, and all that comes from is being able to hear it once. Now, some things may take longer to listen to than others, but it's very important to at least get a good idea of what you're working on before you attempt it, if you want to have a good result. At this point, the recital is about a week away. I started making a conscious effort to slow myself down and put more space between my notes and focus on timing. By this point, the recital has passed, but as I mentioned in my previous video, I still continued to work on this piece to make more improvements. After this run, I moved on to other pieces. There's still work that needs to be done, but I wasn't gaining enough improvement anymore on this piece. It was time to move on to something new. As I mentioned in the beginning, there were two key lessons that I learned from this work. Number one, listening is just as important as practicing. There was a night and day difference between my first and my second run at this solo section just because I got to hear it once. But this lesson does not just apply to what you are working on. It also works on re-watching or re-listening to work that you've done in the past. In putting together these videos, I had to re-watch all these clips just to remind myself what I was thinking and what my thought process was as I went through the practicing. But I gained an additional benefit from that. I also got to see mistakes that I didn't necessarily notice while I was playing. And I've learned some things about what I need to work on going forward. Number two, more notes does not mean a better solo. As one of my teachers says, the notes you don't play can be more important than the ones you do play. Overall, this was a great piece to use to get some rust out of my playing. The relaxed tempo and fun groove helped me focus on improving timekeeping, creating a solid beat, and relaxing while playing. However, all good things must come to an end. Sticking with the same piece of music for too long tends to affect my creativity and causes me to repeat my approach too much. This will likely be the last video on this piece for now. However, I may return to it in the future, and if I do, I will share what I learn. I hope you have found this series helpful. Again, if you have any suggestions for content or format, please leave them in the comments below. I wish you luck on your journey. Thanks for watching. See you next time.